What we do have control over is how we think about it and what we do with that. And little steps can make a huge difference. Well, you just said it.
Sorry.
No, I think it was great. I think this is a great thing to talk about. It shows up anything. Like it shows up like if you have this dream and you want to do something and you're still sitting there not doing it. It shows up in
how you help people rediscover their passion, discover their true selves.
That's a good question. I think it's different.
This is the Leading with Love podcast. We're gathered here to open our hearts, expand our souls, live fully in our gifts, and co-create the world we want to see. Let's dive right in.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Coming at you for the Leading with Love podcast. My name is Shauna. Welcome for those of you who have not been here before and everybody returning, of course. Today is an interview day, a conversation day, and I have the most lovely, brilliant, just shiny, beautiful soul that has said yes. And it was a beautiful yes for both of us to have this conversation, just to bring you whatever gifts we can to help you have more love in your life. And I just want to give you just the briefest introduction to her because I'm very eager to bring her on. She is a mental health therapist by trade, but she is so much more than that. Not only has she worked with hundreds of clients, she is a founder, she's an entrepreneur, she has created a nonprofit in the past. She's the founder of the I Am Enough movement. Imagine, I am enough. Marissa Peer tells us, she's a lovely just gal out in the world, that one of our most primal wounds or beliefs that almost every human being has is I am not enough. It may not show up that way. You might not say those words. And Megan and I, her name is Megan, are going to dive into that today and bring you some tools and maybe some expanded awareness around how maybe this I am not enough shows up in your life so that you can feel you are enough and create and build the life that is so worthy of you and you are worthy of it. So without any further delay, I bring on beautiful Megan Fenyoe.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me, Shauna.
Yeah, it's an absolute joy. Your face is always just radiant, and we've caught Megan in between sessions with clients. So you are a practicing mental health therapist, and I just love that. I love that you have, I do have some questions for you and lots of things to dive into, but just heart-brain coherence is something that I'm really big into learning about and embodying. And the fact that you have this gorgeous intellect and you bring the mind so much into things in your work, mindset blocks and limiting beliefs and thoughts. And then you also have this beautiful heart and you want people to feel like they're enough and you want to see that transformation that you have witnessed, I'm sure, countless times when people come into that belief, which is really self-love. And, you have that's creating heart-brain coherence right there because what you do.
Yeah.
And so, share with it's like, just take it away.
No, I appreciate the kind words and for, thinking of me to be a guest on your podcast. It's amazing what you're doing. I've been a licensed mental health therapist for 17 years. But I think really the journey started back in 2018 when I was involved in a very narcissistic, abusive marriage. And I know I had to kind of reprogram and transform my life personally and professionally when I walked away from that. And so, everything that I do since then and for the last 17 years has really been to help people get through these blocks that are keeping them stuck and for them to truly believe that they're enough.
That's really beautiful because it speaks to the fact that people do stay in situations that are painful and uncomfortable because of that unspoken, perhaps, belief that they're not worthy of anything better, or maybe something better is not for them. I'm sure you've seen all of the stories that we tell ourselves and how that manifests in really painful relationships and stuckness. You talk about staying stuck, like this choice. I wrote down so many beautiful things I want to ask you about, but you have this paradigm where it's like you stay stuck. It's like these choices, actual choices. Are you going to stay stuck? Are you going to keep running those loops, beliefs, patterns? Or are you going to expand your mindset and look at what's blocking you and actually learn or remember that you are enough and then live accordingly?
Yes. Yeah, it is such a powerful message. I think for me, I created this story of not being enough based on experiences that I, had with my ex-husband. Like, he never said those words like, Megan, you are not enough, but
Right.
I created that story. And so many of us create stories based on experiences we have, self-esteem issues, and the key is to really like test the reality of that story and of those thoughts, because I actually had to do that. I had been a therapist, for over 10 years at that point, and really had to dive back into, like when I was with my ex-husband, and really had to dive back into rediscovering who I was and the stories I had created during that time, which ultimately became my first best-selling book. But it's so important. We are always constantly in our mind. We're thinking about things, but 90% of the time, I would say 99% of the time, we're in our head in a bad way.
Yeah.
And so what I try to encourage clients to do, and myself included, is to stop those thoughts and realize if they're negative, how that's influencing your actions and your behaviors. Because the one thing that we have 100% control of is our thoughts, behaviors, and actions. And so it's really important that we learn how to be in our mind and in our thoughts in a positive way.
So it's awareness first, right? It's even being aware that those thoughts in our head are dysfunctional. They're probably not ours. And we can question them. And the mind is meant to be a tool, not the master. And we've kind of started letting it run the show, most of us. And it's not kind.
Mm-hmm.
It's really mean. Like if we haven't done that work, you would never talk to your friends the way that the voices in your head talk to you if you don't address it and really question what are you telling yourself all day?
Exactly. And that's what we call thought stopping. So it's when you notice that sometimes we notice it physically first, like we may feel like anxious, sad, depressed, stressed. And so that's kind of when we have to stop and say, okay, what is my mind thinking right now? Like, what are the thoughts that I have in my head right now? And 9 times out of 10, you're going to see that it's the thoughts that are driving some of these feelings, these physical feelings that you have. And so the key is to stop that thought and kind of reverse it, and asking yourself that, like, would I say this to my best friend? Or how do I show up in the world when I believe that this thought is true? So when I had believed that I was not enough, it did not just affect like my relationship with my ex-husband. Again, it wasn't my fault for having this belief, but
right.
But I was showing up in the world that I didn't believe I was a good therapist, a good friend, a good daughter, a good sister. Like, it was affecting the entire part of my existence. And I didn't really understand the full magnitude of that until I started kind of doing my own trauma work in my own therapy, and started writing my book and all of that stuff, where I realized that this story I created was affecting every area of my life.
Yes, it sounds like, and I'm sure we both know experientially that those beliefs flow into everything. Wherever you go, there you are, right? So It's like there's sneaky ways that that's flowing out into all of your relationships, every way that you show up if you're not enough. And then you have the world that is a mirror, so you're going to have relationships. Ooh, that gave me a shiver. You're going to attract relationships, even though, as you said, it's not your fault at all. But, someone's going to show up and reflect that not enough belief to you.
Yes. And
until you look at it.
Said, like you just said about relationships, I was attracting so many negative relationships, I think. And I'm not talking about intimate relationships. I'm talking about like friendships. I mean, intimate, like friendships, right?
Yes.
Allowing people to take advantage of me, take advantage of my heart and my passions, and just surrounding myself with people that I thought were good, but were not good. And in the last probably 7 years, I have had to walk away from just so many friendships, so many people, because I have fully believed that I'm enough. And have come to this realization that I would just rather keep my circle small and keep the people that I know that are going to show up for me, and I'm going to show up for them, because I was struggling so much, and I was just allowing all of these people into my life that just were not serving me, and I wasn't serving them, to be honest. It was just not.
You were playing out patterns, right? Everybody does that, and we show up, like I said, for each other in relationship. I have this, I don't know if it's a belief, but maybe a hope that we are all angels for each other. And so from some other realm, we're showing up to witness and reflect the wounds that each of us have we came here to work through. And so great job on all those friends and that ex-husband. But when you know better, you do better, right? And
exactly.
I think that's pretty common as people. I see it in the personal development world, right? Self-improvement, self-growth, but also spiritual growth, any kind of healing and self-awareness expanding work. You kind of stop hanging around with the people that you used to because you recognize how dysfunctional, maybe it was codependent, maybe it was just, there was martyrdom there, or there's so many ways that can show up, but unhealthy for you. And you start going, wait, no, I don't want this.
Exactly. And 100%. And it can be a very lonely journey. I mean, I think right now, I'm going to be honest, like, this is probably like the loneliest I have felt I'm 46, and in the last like year and a half, 2 years, but it's the most peaceful I have felt.
Yeah.
Because I think as we get older too, it's just, we don't want to deal with the people that aren't serving us. And, but yeah, so it comes with some negative, I wouldn't say negatives, but it does come with some other challenges as well. But I'm just constantly reminding myself that my circle is small, and that's okay. And I don't have the stress. I don't have the anxiety. I am a good person, and the people that are meant to be in my life are going to be there. And between now and in the future, right? Like, the people that are meant to be in my life in the future are going to be there.
Yep, and the healthier you get and the clearer you get, you're a more clear frequency and a beacon for those that are healthy and can match you and meet you in the healthy, healed being that you are now. And I want to thank you just vulnerably for a second for going there about how lonely a journey it can be. Any kind of growth where you're releasing old friends and old ways of being, and especially because those people still in those patterns are not going to understand. So you might get a lot of bite back, right? And criticism so you have to protect your energy and protect your heart and protect the intention that you have to heal yourself and care for yourself and honor and respect yourself and be around people who celebrate you. And there may not be that many people as you evolve.
Yeah,
it can be lonely. I totally agree. And it's one of those tests that the universe sends you. It's like, you could go back and hang out with those people.
Exactly.
And you get to choose.
And I love that. I think, like, when I left my ex-husband, I was surrounded by so many people. Like, my book came out 5 months later. That's kind of when I met you, and I was doing all these speaking things, traveling around the country, and my podcast, I was so busy during that time.
Probably a bit of a blessing.
Yeah, exactly. And I think when the world shut down with the pandemic is kind of where I learned where my true friends were and those who were just acquaintances. And so I was lucky that I had so much going on and so many people around during the couple years after leaving my ex-husband. But I think, like I said, the last 2 years is where I'm just kind of rediscovering who I am as a 46-year-old and all of this stuff, and not having all of those people around. So yes, I think I'm in the lonely part right now, where when I left my ex-husband, I wasn't in the lonely part.
Yeah, because you were so busy. It's almost like when you're grieving and you lose somebody, and I know you and I have been through, we don't need to go there, but some grief and some loss in the past. I mean, everybody has, but I know we've had some very personal losses, and they're painful, and it's almost like we build in busyness after those couple weeks after somebody passes away into their next adventure, shall we say. I think that we've created these rituals around funerals and what all the things to keep ourselves from that desolation that is too shocking in the moment. And sometimes or sometimes you'll see people who are grieving and have lost someone, they'll go to work because they just need to keep busy for a little while, and it's a bit of a blessing just to like take the edge off a bit.
Yeah. Exactly.
And so you had some beautiful success, you had some beautiful things to look forward to and connections, and then that double-edged sword, right? It's like, oh, but then you're doing all this healing and all of a sudden you don't want to be around all those people so much.
Exactly. And I think it's what I call like rediscovering ourselves. There's so many times in my life where I've had to rediscover myself. And I think the last time was when I left my ex-husband, and I think I'm in a rediscovery phase right now.
Yeah. I can feel it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means sometimes.
No, it's good. You talk to me about some new things that you're up to and transitional energy, where some of the things that were so much a part of you at that time, you're letting go of and releasing and stepping into new things. So that's
Exactly.
wonderful.
And it is possible, but yeah, it can be scary. And it's, I'm very blessed to have a full schedule as a therapist, and I work primarily from home. So I'm home all the time, and just kind of, getting in your mid 40s and all the stuff that happens to us women, perimenopause, like just all of this stuff, right? And
Yeah.
so I feel like, I'm at this, like, I have to rediscover who I am again. And like my first book talks about that, like how to rediscover yourself. So I need to take my own advice and kind of
that's the worst and the best.
Right but yeah, it can also be super exciting.
Yeah.
Very exciting. So that's the one thing I want, when I work with people and do podcasts and things like that, is when trying not to fight the change. Like change can be scary, but I am living proof that when you go through something that's life-changing, it is your responsibility to do what you can to work through it. There's going to be ups and downs, obviously, but I can guarantee you at the end of it, it's going to be so much better than what you imagined.
Right. Well, and that's a beautiful, very subtle, nuanced point, I think, that I would like to pull out a little bit, if I can. Let me see if I can grab this. When you are going through all of that change, you cannot see what's on the other side of it. So whether the change is forced upon you or whether you're choosing to let go of some things or evolve or leave a relationship or start a new business or whatever it might be, when you're in the thick of it, in the hallway, as one of my friends likes to say, the hallway between like the old room and the new room, right? You can't see, you don't know what you don't know. So the unknown just feels like this big cavernous, like, your brain doesn't like uncertainty, right? You know so much more about the mind than I do, but you literally cannot perceive the magic that's available to you when you are that new version of yourself, because you're not there yet. It's a bit of a catch-22. Right?
100%. And I think that's why so many people stay where they're at. They stay comfortable. They stay, and I don't want to say stuck, because sometimes the choice to kind of evolve or change your circumstances is not as easy as, some may think, right? So, but what we do have control over is how we think about it and what we do with that. And little steps can make a huge difference. If you would have told me in 2018 that I'd be here where I'm at today, I would have laughed in your face. I was a hot mess. I was such a hot mess.
I mean, aren't we all? But yeah. Like, come on, let's be honest. Even hotter, messier. Yeah.
But again, I think it just, I think everything that you said, like, it is going to be blurry. It's going to be, that's why, like, my favorite flower is the lotus. I use that on my book. I have a tattoo because it's the lotus emerges from this mud, right? It's murky, it's muddy. You don't know, like, what's going to happen, like you were saying. But then at the end, this beautiful flower flourishes. And I just love the symbolism with that. And so I think that's how it is when we're going through stuff,
No mud, no lotus.
Exactly.
I love that. I noticed the lotus on your website, and I've seen you use it, and it is such a beautiful, very simple metaphor. It's so obvious when you see it. Anyone who sees that knows no mud, no lotus, right? It's the perfect symbol for your work. I love that. I use bokeh. I don't know if you can see the background on this podcast. It's diffused light. It's called bokeh. And
I was wondering. I was like,
yeah,
so pretty.
I love it so much because it is a similar metaphor or analogy to light being so beautiful. Light shines on everything, even perceived darkness. Light is always going to dissolve it. And light can make even the most boring, mundane, ugly places look beautiful when it's diffused. Like if you've ever seen a bokeh picture where they've taken a camera and they've unfocused the light and made it a little fuzzy, or the lens, it's like it could be just a garbage, nothing street at night, but the lights look so beautiful when they're diffused like that.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. And I feel like that's kind of that same process. Yeah. So I love it as a metaphor for life, because everything can look beautiful when you shine light on it.
I agree. And I love that you're talking about light. We've talked about lotus, because that's one thing I talk about with my clients, is finding like something, right? Like whatever it is, a visual something, right? Light, flower, a stone, a plant, right? Like, and that one thing is like your armor, your strength. So like under my lotus flower that's on my back, it has the word strength underneath it. So anytime I have programmed my mind to look at a lotus and know that that means strength for me.
Oh, I love that. Oh, you just gave me a chill. That's so beautiful. It's like a touch point, right? An anchor stone, however you want to say that. It's like when I'm running and I use that Nike slogan and I say, just do it, just do it, just do it, just do it. Or I have for my real life, I mean, not just running, it's keep your heart open no matter what. Keep your heart open no matter what. Heart open no matter what. And you're using the lotus. You've programmed your mind to have that touchstone.
Yes.
It's like an immediate...
Yeah, it's what we call visual, as therapists, visual coping skills.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, whether it's like a mantra or an
Visual
object.
coping
Like
skills.
I've used like stones with patients or clients with, like they touch a stone and they put a symbol, like they put a meaning to that stone.
Yes.
Every time they touch that stone, it means something to them. It doesn't mean anything else. Like there's no negative thoughts. There's no questioning anything. It's like when you touch this stone, this
You remember. Yeah, what you want. That's
so
beautiful.
Important to having something visual to be able to kind of ground yourself and bring you back to the here and now. And I think visual coping skills are so important.
That's amazing. I'm sure you have so many tools. I know you have, just again, reading my notes, I was struck by, well, so first of all, actually going back to what you talked about, your strength. And one of the things that you invite people to do, and you not just invite, but you help your clients do. And by the way, guys, she is in California, beautiful California, but also licensed in Michigan as a therapist. And Megan tells me that she opens up, she has one-on-ones. She's very busy and very sought after, and you may be blessed enough to get a one-on-one with her, which would not necessarily be therapy in those, unless you're in those two states, as I understand it. But the coaching, the one-on-one mentorship, the going deep is available. If this is something, like, I will put Megan's information in the show notes, of course, and her book, and she has so many resources on her website. There are ebooks, there are beautiful videos, there's so much for you to dive into, so I'll share those in the show notes. And I'm not trying to yap your ear off. What I wanted to say was, I was struck by when you're talking about your strategies for I guess improving your belief that you are enough. You have these 5 almost touchstones, and it's like you've addressed the positive and the negative. So you're addressing the mindset blocks, and then you're also bringing in strategies like morning rituals and even time management you mentioned. So it's like you're addressing the stuff that's blocking you, and then also here's what you need to do, how you need to, some actions that will help you embody more self-love.
Exactly. So my first book, there's 2 of them. My first book is like just the 5-step system to believing that you are enough. And so just like you said, the first is like identifying the problem, like what is keeping me stuck? And that's kind of like, and then rediscovering who you are with and without this belief. And in order to do that, you need a coping skills. So I always say you need a lot of coping skills in your coping tool belt. So one coping skill is not going to work for, like if you're using a coping skill for depression, it may not work for anxiety. Or if you're using a coping skill for anxiety, it may not work for any stress you're having, right? So you need a lot of coping.
You can draw from them.
Exactly. And so those can be grounding skills, visual coping. It can be, and that includes the time management. It includes self-care, all of these things. It's the framework that's going to help you get from where you're at to where you want to go.
Because you're offering practical wisdom, you're offering strategies and not just ideas, but like, here's your stone, look, here are your flowers, here is your morning ritual. And if you practice that, you begin to become slowly, step by step, that person who looks around one day and says, I really do love myself. I'm totally worthy of my dreams. I don't want to be in this relationship anymore. It's what was I even, you're actually becoming that new person through these beautiful strategies that you offer, coping tools.
Yeah, I think one of the things that worked for me the most is when I initially left my ex-husband, I couldn't get out of bed in the morning, and I had always loved the phrase I am enough, but it wasn't working for me. I needed something more bold. I needed more of a bold statement. So every morning I would write on a sticky note, I am enough because, and then I would follow it with, I am enough because I got out of bed this morning. Because back then, that's what I believed.
That was a big step.
It was like, okay, God woke me up and I got out of bed, and that is what I am good for right now. And it's because I use that word because. And
I love it.
The more I would write that, the more, and repeat that every morning, and started my healing journey, and then started stopping, like the thought stopping skills, where it was like, okay, this thought came in my mind and I'm going to say, nope, I'm not going there. I'm enough because I helped a patient today, or I'm enough because of this, I'm enough because of that. So the more I was in my head in a positive way, stopping those negative thoughts, I was able to create more powerful I am enough statements. So I think the key is, when you're trying to reframe your thought process, is if you believe you're not worthy, or you're a burden or something like that, right? Like, you can't just say I am worthy. It's got to be like, I am worthy because. You have to have that word because after it. And you got to tell yourself those things. It just makes it more powerful. So that was something that I discovered while I was kind of doing my whole, reprogramming my subconscious mind and into all of that, was that big word because at the end of the statements that I was trying to create.
There's so much there in that simple practice. I mean, first of all, you're taking it from the unconscious, which the I am not enough mostly is, right? Until you start looking at it, and making it conscious and intentionally asking your brain to come up with reasons why you are enough. Because eventually it's just you are, and you know that you are, but that's not where you're at when you start that journey. Right? Coming up with those reasons is training your brain to focus on, because our brains are question answering machines. They're like puppies, right? And so you have to ask good questions. And because is a question. I am worthy, I am enough because. It's like your brain can't help but want to answer that. And it might be, hey, I'm breathing. Like you said, I got out of bed today.
Yep, exactly. And then the other thing important in this, which I think we all forget, is when you get done with your statement, is you have to put a period at the end of it.
Okay.
So the period stops the sentence, right? Mm-hmm. So in your mind, you can say, I am enough because I got out of bed this morning. But
it'll go ...
Yes. So I have reprogrammed my mind to, like, this just happens naturally, because of course there's days where I still think that I'm not enough, right? Like, it's just normal being a human, right? You're still going to have those thoughts, but like, my brain just visualizes this, I am enough because whatever, blah, 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 period. Done. So there's no there's no way to add a but to it.
That's so fascinating. It's like, again, you know how to work with the brain and how the mind works. This is your background, this is your training. And it's such a simple thing, the dot, the period. Yeah. But without it, it's like you're ending the sentence. Hey, brain, this is it. I'm enough.
We're done.
Right? Otherwise it goes, okay, but I can absolutely see that. It's so brilliant and simple. Yeah. I've never heard anyone say that. I love that.
Yeah. Always got to have that period at the end, or an exclamation point. Anything that you like.
Anything that ends it.
That stops the thought.
Wow. And in fact, when you were talking about the touchstones or the coping tools, I was thinking about how people put Post-it notes, and it's almost a cliche like, oh, I'm so wonderful. You put Post-it notes everywhere, but actually it works because our subconscious receives things all the time. And so whatever you're feeding it is what it's going to pick up on repeatedly, right?
Yes.
You would know.
So the more you do this, the more you're reprogramming your subconscious mind, right? So the reason why our minds always go to the negative is because it's so easy to go to the negative, right? So
True.
you're teaching your mind to stay in the negative. And so that's why we have depression, we have anxiety, we have all of these different things. So the more you practice the positive, the easier it is going to be. Your mind is just going to catch on. Now, again, are you going to have it's not going to be all sunshine and rainbows, right? You're going to have moments of questioning, and you're still going to have some anxiety and depression, but the goal is to not let those things take you down and keep
right. I call that pivoting back. Like when I notice that I'm getting off on some, thought that's running away, and we're kind of I don't want to say addicted, but those old familiar patterns, they really have a hold on us. And you're actually creating new neural pathways when you're training your brain to think in new ways. And I mean, the subconscious or unconscious, they're beautiful. Unconscious, I don't know enough to know the difference between the subconscious and the unconscious. But what I do know is that habits, the force of habit, is a beautiful force because it helps us live, right? And filter out all of the things that are superfluous and we don't need in everyday life, and drive a car or walk and, be functional. So you're using that same mechanism for positive, whereas it has the habit of thinking negatively. You're retraining it because it does like to be trained. It's trainable to support you.
And I'm sorry?
To support you.
Exactly. I think there's many variations, I think, of the subconscious and unconscious mind. I believe the unconscious mind is the stories that we're not paying attention to, that we're telling ourselves, that are coming out in different behaviors: anxiety, stress, depression. And again, I'm not saying that it's all of our stories that are causing anxiety and depression, right? Please do not take that.
No, not at all. No.
But a lot of it is caused by what we're thinking. And so I believe our unconscious mind is coming out in our behaviors and our actions.
That's really interesting. I just read a meme last night that I loved, and I screenshotted it because it said, your past trauma does not come out as memories. It doesn't show up as memories. It shows up as reactions.
That is so 100%.
Right?
100% true. Yes.
Just like I am not enough or I'm not worthy doesn't show up that way. Usually, you're not just sitting here going, oh, it shows up as, oh, I'm self-sabotaging this new cute relationship or this potential job opportunity. Or actually, I'd love for you to speak on that, Megan, how you must have seen so many ways that I am not enough manifests and shows up in people.
Well, you just said it.
Sorry.
No, I think it was great. I think this is a great thing to talk about. It shows up anything. It shows up if you have this dream and you want to do something and you're still sitting there not doing it. It shows up in, again, it may not, maybe you left a negative relationship and you're back in another negative relationship because you don't believe that you're enough. So it can show up in so many ways. For me, again, I haven't been in a serious relationship since I left my ex-husband, but for me, it showed up in different people that I allowed access into my life, the people that were just taking and taking and taking.
Ouch.
And so, yeah, I definitely think it does. And I think you have to pay attention to that. But if you're not willing to notice and acknowledge that you have these negative thoughts, you're not going to be able to change the behaviors that these negative thoughts are causing.
Right, exactly. And I was having a podcast conversation earlier with someone, and we were talking about how awareness is that first step. Otherwise, you're just going to be projecting and blaming, and you're going to wonder why you keep having jerks that show up as boyfriends when, guess who the common denominator is, right? You haven't looked at what patterns you're running that are sabotaging relationships and causing people to come into your life that don't honor you and don't respect you. And like, relationships really are a mirror, romantic or not. They're beautiful mirrors if we choose to, I guess I would say, take those triggers and actually look at what's going on and not just be reactive.
Exactly. And I think so many people don't do that. I think so many people blame the other person or whatever and don't use that time to reevaluate them. So I know people that have walked away from me or I've had to walk away from, I use that time to look at and say, okay, what did I not per se do, but how did I come into this relationship and where are some things that I can improve in the future? And I think for me, it's the boundaries. And I think more recently, in the past couple years, now that I feel like I have kind of, I mean, I still have my trauma symptoms and that kind of stuff, but I feel like so much stronger. I think the setting the boundaries with people that have caused them to walk away, because
it's huge.
Because once you gain that confidence, even if you explain what you're doing and the boundary that you're setting, their reaction to A is not your fault. And B, it's like, okay, then, but I'm not going to change my boundaries and allow you to treat me like this. And so, yeah, I think there's so much encompassing to relationships, but when you start really gaining that confidence in yourself and what you deserve, boundary setting is huge. And like we said earlier at the beginning of this podcast, like, it can be a lonely journey, but at the end of it, you're just going to be surrounded by the people where you don't have the drama, you don't have the stress, you just feel amazing.
Peaceful.
Yeah,
hopeful. Yeah, it might be lonely, but whoever's going to come into your life now, they're not going to get into your sphere unless there's going to be a mutual respect and love and celebration and leaning in when there are challenges and so much less drama. I totally agree. And I heard somebody say that the only person who's going to have a problem with your boundaries was someone who was okay breaking them in the first place, who was okay pushing you in the first place, disrespecting you in the first place. I was like, ooh.
That's very true.
Yeah.
And now, I have never heard that one, but I love it because as you said that, I was like thinking all of these like names popped into my head. I'm like,
yeah. Like, specific people like immediately show up.
Exactly. I'm like, oh gosh. But no, it's so true. And I've second guessed myself on every relationship where I've set that boundary and they've walked away or I have chosen to walk away. But at the end of the day, I can't imagine still having those people in my life.
No, it's so beautiful. It's like a filter, and it can be painful, especially if you're used to people pleasing or whatever you might call it, when you haven't felt like you were enough, which again is a very primal, common human wound or belief, right? Again, It doesn't always show up that way as I'm not enough, but we all have that to some extent because when we were little, we just, formed these, I mean, we don't have to go into that right now, but it's so common as I would say most people have some version of, you would know more than I do, but it's like, I come at it from the self-love lens, from the lens of love. And it feels to me, as we're talking about it even more, that is kind of a very similar topic. Self-love, when you don't have it, shows up in the same ways as I'm not enough. If you don't love yourself. And I even heard someone say once that they hated themselves. And I was like, whoa, I just couldn't even conceive of that, how painful that would be. And then you start setting these boundaries and it acts like a filter. And there are parts of you that are going to be sad.
Of course. And I think boundaries for yourself and for others. We have to set boundaries for ourselves. That's the key, is the first thing, right? Is boundaries with ourselves. Like, what are we going to allow for ourselves? So if you don't want someone disrespecting your time, your energy, saying mean things to you, then you have to start by doing that for yourself. Like, you have to set that boundary for your energy and your time and what you say to yourself and how you show up for yourself. Because then setting boundaries with other people, it just doesn't really make sense if you're not setting those boundaries.
That's a really good point. Right. So you're honoring yourself, you're trusting yourself, or you're respecting yourself so that you can trust your decisions. You're okay to say no to things. there's a lot of practice in here, which I love about your wisdom, because it's not just esoteric. It's like rituals, choices, knowing what your strengths are, choosing your boundaries, choosing your what you will and will not put up with. It's like you kind of went there a little bit a few minutes ago, where you set the boundary. How everybody else behaves is up to them.
Exactly.
It's not your
You
fault.
don't have to take that on. You do not have to take that on. So I always, like, in some of my sessions with my clients, I remind them, like, a lot of my clients talk about, like, we work on communication, like how do I communicate what I'm thinking and feeling and need in a relationship. And I always remind them that if you sit down and have a conversation with someone and you're showing up calmly, respectfully, and just saying, you know, this is how I feel, this is what I need from you, this is what, you know, blah, 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 whatever, right? And they get mad at you, that is on them, not you.
Yeah.
If you go and you're attacking and you're yelling and you're screaming and whatever, and they get mad at you, then yeah, that's on you.
Of course.
But we cannot take on someone else's inability to hear us and process what we're saying, because they're too focused on themselves and what they want to say in return or whatever, right? So like, we cannot take that on, and that's really, really hard. I have done so much work, I think, in the last couple of years with that personally, where it's like, I have been very honest and real and open and calmly stated, whether it be in an email, or I never do it on text, but like email or face to face, where I have shared my heart and what I need and what I will not accept. And
it didn't go well.
It didn't go well. And now I'm okay with it, right?
Yeah.
I looked at that, where it's like, I didn't do anything wrong. I was honest, because people expect that of you, right? Like, you can't change the roles and you get upset, because heaven forbid, like, they would get upset, you know, that you got upset. So
yeah, people don't tend to like their own medicine, you know, when the tables are turned, because they're running a pattern, or they're trying to take advantage of you, maybe not consciously, but they like the dynamic the way it was. So when you start changing, that's one of the best things someone can say to you. You're changing. You've changed. You bet. You better believe I've changed. Are you going to come with me, or are you going to stay in that whatever you are? Because I'm not doing that anymore. And yeah, it can be really painful when you start doing that. And I will again say that I've got issues with that too, or I've had issues with that in the past, where I would take on someone's feelings or someone's reaction and kind of take responsibility for it, or not want them to react badly. And it's really none of my business. My business is my business, and it's something that I've really had to learn, especially because, you know, I have an open heart and I have a lot of compassion, and I don't like chaos. I don't like conflict, I guess, which is what that can feel like. But it kind of isn't.
That's why I'm just in my own little bubble these days. It's like the conflict and the chaos. I grew up with so much conflict and chaos, and I allowed that in my life for so long. And I think now, like, in my mid 40s, I'm just like, I'm done. I don't want the chaos. I don't want the conflict. I want peace, and I would rather just be in my own little here in the world.
I totally feel you
in my life.
And those people might not like it, but you know, what other people think is none of your business, and what you think is none of theirs. And it's really a big life lesson. It's very freeing. And you're like, oh,
100% free.
What other people think is none of my business is literally not my business to worry about them handling their own emotions. They're grown-ups. It reminds me of the let them theory. It's like hashtag let them, right? Yeah. It's like, oh, it's so freeing. They get to have a hissy fit or act like the little Tasmanian devil and run around in their pattern, because you're changing and you're just like, yep, bye, I'm not doing that anymore. I love this because it's an invitation to, it gets this out to so many more people, that it's almost like a permission slip. You don't need a permission slip to everybody watching and listening, but maybe this is a permission slip for you to actually draw those boundaries and say gracious no's. Or it doesn't have to be gracious. It can just be a no.
Yeah, it can just be a no. I love that you're...
No is a full sentence, as they say.
Yes, exactly. It can just be a no.
Woo! Ooh, that's another thing. Okay, I will admit, guilty for sure of when I say a no, I would have in the past couched it in because here's why I'm saying no. I'm so sorry. Like I can't, as opposed to just, yeah, no, I can't do that. I'm not doing that. I'm sorry, that doesn't work for me. No. No.
I think I still struggle with that too. I feel like I
Yeah.
have to put like an explanation behind my no. I think it's getting easier as I'm getting older though to say no. It's just like, no, I'm not doing this. I'm not going here. I'm not going there. I'm not doing that. But yeah, I think that was a really good thing that you just said, like having to learn it's okay just to say no. We don't have to put an excuse or a
Oof.
reason behind it.
Well, I'm recognizing just even as we're talking about it, there's a big difference between explaining because you feel guilty saying no, and it's like a little bit of a small, I'm sorry, energy. For anyone listening and not watching, I'm just kind of making myself small, like a little mouse. I'm sorry, I can't. No, versus an explanation because you have learned how to say a gracious no and you don't want to burn bridges, and we're not talking about abuse or anything like that or drama or chaos, but a gracious no can be a very valuable life skill, and that kind of explanation is very different than the energy we're talking about where it was kind of people pleasing and the no feels uncomfortable because you're not used to drawing boundaries.
Right. Exactly.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. 100%. I think all of this stuff we're talking about is so important, and it takes time. Like that's the one thing, like rediscovering yourself and and creating new stories and getting rid of the old stories that are keeping you stuck, and setting boundaries for yourself and with others. Like all of this stuff takes time, but I think it all comes together when you first start rediscovering who you are. And it's ever evolving. Like
Yeah.
for a while I was good, and now I feel like things are changing again, and things are just getting smaller and smaller, and that's good. And but I think that is the main key, is you've got to start that first step of like, if you're not where you want to be in your life, whether it be career wise, relationship wise, just life in general, you have to start asking yourself the questions, like rediscovering, what do you want in life? What is keeping you from going forward? All of these things. That is kind of like where you have to start. And then all of these things will slowly fall into place.
So much there. So good. So good. Yeah. I mean, we're undoing lifetimes of patterns and layers of almost like sludgy layers, like mud, right? For that lotus to come out. Yeah. It's like you're dissolving or pouring water on all these layers of mud. Let's put it that way. And it takes time to go down layer and live. Some of those layers underneath are pretty, packed down, and to continue the metaphor. And so you're excavating, and grace and compassion for ourselves when we're doing this beautiful work, because it's a lot for our nervous system. I think right now, just on earth, we are expanding our capacities to hold a lot more and to receive a lot more information, whether you're even going to go spiritual with that or not, or even just look at the modern world of technology and everything. Like we have so much more input than we ever had in entire lifetimes previously in an hour now. And so that, on top of all the stuff that we're undoing and expanding into, it's like, it's a lot.
It is so much.
It's so much.
Sometimes I'm like, I just want to go back to like, when I was younger, where we didn't have all of this.
The innocence, right? Like, why did I want to be a grown-up? Like, what was I thinking? Exactly. The sun is starting to come around the building that I'm in, as I'm sure you can see. So hopefully it's not too just like shiny.
It looks great. It looks good.
Starting to get.
We're 3 hours. There's a time difference.
I'm on Eastern right now. Yeah, I just wanted to, I know you got to go soon, but you talk a lot about rediscovering. And I know one of the things you do, one of the words I really picked up in your work was discovery, discovering your true self, discovering your purpose, rediscovering your passion. And I love that kind of work too. I do a lot of that work with people. Is like, what did you dream of when you were a little kid? What is that little voice in your heart actually saying that it wants to do with this life, this beautiful life that you've been given? And you talk about, I read somewhere that you wrote about how, again, that shows up as like when something is missing but you don't know what it is, and it's maybe you don't think you're enough but you don't know that, right? Or I would say you don't love yourself but you don't know that. You have some limiting belief. that's showing up
Exactly.
as like a lack of excitement. Like you said, you have a dream, but you're not going for it, or you've just given up on your dreams. You know, you don't have any meaning in your life, whatever that might be. I would love for you to speak just before we go about like how you help people rediscover their passion, discover their true selves.
That's a good question. I think it's different for everyone. I don't think there's like a specific caveat that to do. I mean, I start with like just asking simple questions, which is also in the book as well, like different questions on what do you get excited about? I know as a child, like I wanted to be a teacher. That's obviously not what I wanted, what I ended up doing, right? So, but like I've always wanted to like learn to draw and learn to play the piano and like different things like that. So yes, going back to your childhood on different things, but then also like there's certain questions. I think our values come into play 100% when it comes to what are our passions, what is our purpose, like what do we want to bring into this world. And so one of
Absolutely.
the things I talk about is our values. Our values change every time we go through something, which is anything we go through, something life changing, whether it's a job ending, health issue, relationship ending, what have you. Our values change. So it's important to always kind of rediscover your values, because then that's going to show you what's important to you. And so there's a value exercise in my book, but you can also do a values exercise. Like you can Google it; they're everywhere.
Oh yeah.
And rediscovering those. And so when I redid my values back when I left my ex-husband, my new values were authenticity, integrity, and honesty. And so, although I probably should do another one now that I'm like,
Absolutely, you should.
perimenopause is just
No, it's a beautiful opportunity. Well, hang in there, girl.
I know. So I just think like, yeah, I think I need to. I'm in that rediscovery phase. But
Yes.
those were my top 3 back then, and that's how I lived my life. So I knew when I was kind of building this that I knew I didn't want to go back to a 9 to 5. I wanted to like have more freedom in my, in my life. So I took the jump of, doing private practice and then wrote my book. And like, so it kind of aligned with my values. So like if your value ends up being like friendship or whatever, right? Like you may, part of your new passion, your new self is getting out there more, like joining different groups, like joining, online groups or joining like meetup groups or what have you, right? Like, so once you first develop what your top 3 values are, then it's going to be somewhat easier for you to kind of spear guide like where you want to go with your passion and your purpose and how to get there.
Totally agree. I could not agree more. I have a podcast called Could This Be the Answer? And it's about living your values and actually that happiness, it comes from living your values, at least part of it, right? It's like that they offer such, again, touch point keeps coming to mind, like beautiful anchors or touch points, very, very simple and easy to make decisions based on does this align with my values? And your values do change, and those are always gorgeous opportunities to evolve and reassess what's actually important to me. Maybe I thought something was important to me 5 years ago or even yesterday. But if I have this word authenticity, which for me is like one of my key values for sure, maybe even the top, maybe freedom and love, but I mean, authenticity is right up there. And it's like, it's so easy to assess your behavior and your actions and your decisions when you know what you value, when you want to live and feel aligned, and naturally you're going to feel happier and more passionate and more lit up and more present and alive because you're not just incongruent, if that is
exactly. And I think too, like I've in the past couple years I've had to like remind myself what my values were when it came to relationships. Like, is this relationship allowing me to show up as my authentic self, allowing me to live in integrity, and allowing me to be honest with myself and with this person, whether in friendships and things like that. And so I constantly have used those top 3, not just for where I wanted career-wise, but like in relationships as well, because I think that's really important. And if you're not able to, for me, it was like, if I'm not able to say, yes, I'm living authentically, integrity, having integrity and being honest, I need to walk away from this relationship.
Right. So it makes your yeses and nos easier.
Yeah.
which then makes you trust yourself more, which helps you make better decisions, which helps you have better friendships and let go of some. And yeah, it's a beautiful upward spiral instead of the downward spiral your mind was taking you on most of your life, it seems. Not you, but like all of us.
My mind does. Let's be honest.
All of us.
Just because I'm a therapist does not mean that like I have.
No, I love that. One of my favorite things that you said was that you've been 10 years already a therapist when you went through this whole really deep process with your ex-husband and learning so much about yourself and evolving so much. You didn't have all the answers. And sometimes when you're in a business like that, or, you know, that you could kind of think you have all the answers. And so now you have this beautiful experiential path that you've been on that you can bring to your clients and your, I guess they're patients, right? You said not clients, or
Well, I know. So sometimes it's so.
You're careful with the word.
Some clients I work with, I have to say patients, and then some other places like it's clients. Yeah, it gets very confusing.
No, I got it. I caught that. It's good. You're careful about it.
I'm an independent contractor for a couple of mental health clinics.
Right.
And so they want me to use patients and then other things as clients. So I have to catch myself.
Well, this is all so beautiful, and I know like you have to go, right? Do you not have a patient?
A new patient that I have, and this is a new patient.
You sure? Yeah. Okay, amazing. So I am going to put all of the information where people can find you and look up your beautiful resources on your website and, see that lotus that's just like, the values. It's a value. It's a touchstone. I love it. It's a beautiful thing for people to remember from this conversation. And we've touched on a lot of things without going super deep. So hopefully we've, opened up some questions and planted some seeds. And I will share, like I said, where people can find you so you don't have to go into that now. But if there's anything you'd like to close with, please go ahead.
I appreciate you having me as a guest. It's been a wonderful conversation. It's actually provided some insight into me, like things I need to get on, right? Like my values and things like that. But I just want to encourage, those of you who are listening that, if you are feeling stuck, if you are feeling like life is you're just existing and not living, like you have the opportunity to make some of these changes. And it can be scary, it can be difficult, but I am living proof. If you look at everything I've been through, read my books, social media, whatever, I'm not here as someone that hasn't been through the mud, but when you go through the mud, you can, get out of it and create something beautiful. So
amazing. Thank you. Thank you for the encouragement and the inspiration and for showing up and for your beautiful heart and all your beautiful work. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. Have an amazing session with your lucky new client, patient. And I will talk to you soon. Thank you, Megan.
Okay, thank
All right.
you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Wherever you are and whatever you're doing, I hope you enjoyed this episode and it helped you open your heart, feel inspired, and know that we are all connected. Please subscribe and share so this work can touch more people. This is how we co-create the world we want to live in. Thank you so much again for joining us, and talk to you next time.